Good morning, guys, and good evening. Welcome and thank you for joining this session 8 of ServiceNow Basics. This is the last session on this series. So, we'll be covering a couple of topics today. It's going to take around 1.5 to 2 hours, somewhere in between. I'll try to finish it as soon as I can, but I don't want to rush. I don't want to, just go through it and nobody understands. So I'll try to go into details. I'll go slowly as usual, and let's see how fast we can complete it. So topics for today are update sets, ACLs, script includes requests and workflow. So these are all very important topics. They are used widely in ServiceNow. Update sets are used to move your code from one instance to another. So I'm sure I did mention at some point in the beginning that, yeah, recording is on, just for confirmation. So update sets, as I said, are used to move code from one instance to another. In a typical development environment uh, and a typical setup of ServiceNow provides at least 3 instances to a customer. One is a developer instance. It's not like our PDI, the personal development instance. No, it's not that, but they do provide one instance for you to do your development. It's dedicated to you, your team. So every development is done on that instance. You can name it whatever you like. You can tell them the name and they'll name it accordingly. But that's, it is to understand that that is a dedicated instance. It never gets reclaimed. Your personal development instances, if you don't use them, they are reclaimed after 10 days or so. Also, if you don't use it, they go in sleep mode. You might have noticed it. But your developer instances, they don't go to sleep. They're never reclaimed. They are for you, for your dedicated development, for you, your team. So that is one instance. So when we are doing all the development on our developer instance, how do we move all that code we have written from developer to the next instance, which usually is a QA instance or a test instance, or some people call it user acceptance testing, UAT instance. So call it whatever, but there's another instance where testing is conducted. There's, on that instance, no development is done, but testing is done. So you have to have some means of moving your code from developer instance to UAT instance. You shouldn't be going and rewriting the code or copy pasting. There should be a smarter way of moving that. So in reality, deploying your code, if that's the term you like to hear. But yeah, you have to use update sets, and that's the purpose of update sets, moving code from one instance to another without a lot of hassle. Similarly, once your code is tested, your functionality you've developed is tested, and it's signed off, it is said that it looks healthy, it works the way it is expected to be, and there are no issues with that, or it has not caused any other damage. If it is signed off, it is said to be approved for production. That is when you move your code from test instance or a QA instance to your production or live instance. Again, update sets are used for conducting this movement. Update sets are important. Uh, they are means for you to move your code from one instance to another. ACLs, it's a short form. The full form is Access Control List, ACCESS, Access Control List. So as the name suggests, it controls access to various resources. Resources means database tables here, okay? So it controls access to resources in system. So you use ACLs to control who can read from a given table, who can write to a given table, who can create new records. So there's a difference between create and write. Okay, create is creating a new record, write is like updating. Okay, that's what write is. So who can create, who can update, who can read, even read, who can even read from a table, who can delete from a table. So the basic operations in ServiceNow, in a database rather, insert, update, delete, and query. So who can do all that on a given table? ACLs are used to control that. A couple of ACLs clubbed together under one roof forms a role. So when we say we're granting a role is just a name. Underneath role, there are multiple ACLs that you have configured and aligned with that role, which are controlling the access to the database table. So if we created a logbook application, we also there's a, let's go, okay, we'll talk about it later. I'll show you when we'll go specifically in that topic, but I'm trying to give you an overview of all those things. Script includes these I mean, name says a bit script, right? So these are scripts for sure, and these are server side scripts. So I did mention at some point in my previous session that there are two kinds of scripts in ServiceNow: a client-side script and a server-side script. So client-side scripts are the scripts which run on your browser. Browser is a client, right? Client and server. In that setup, browser is client because that is calling the server and consuming output from there. And then examples of client scripts are like, of course, our client scripts, onload, on submit, on change, all those scripts which we write. UI policy are also client side components. They also run on client side, and we saw there's an option, advanced option to write a script in there as well. So those are client side components. Server-side components are business rules. We saw them yesterday. Script include is another server-side component. So all the code, all the script written in script includes are executed on server. Script includes lets you define and use functions you think are common and you want to reuse them. So it's ServiceNow's way of defining reusable components. Some things you want to use across your server-side scripts, and it is common. You create script includes, you create functions in them, and you reuse them. A typical example could be a validation of an email address, for example. So imagine your platform asks for email address as an input at multiple places, and you want to validate that the email address being entered is at least correct from the syntax point of view. It does have @ sign. It should have a dot, at least one after that, and it should look like an email cosmetically. So those cosmetic, we cannot validate in reality whether that email exists or not, but looking at the name, we should be able to tell whether that's a right email address or not. So a.com is not an email address, but sumit@a.com is, looks like an email address. So we can do that much of validation. So if I'm having that email field across my instance and on multiple forms, and I want to make sure everyone who enters an email address is at least syntactically correct, I have to write a code to do that. And if I don't follow the script include path, I'll probably end up writing the same code on all these forms on various areas. So you can have a script include, define that script as a function in that, and call it from everywhere else. So you're reusing your code in that sense. Requests and workflow. Okay, these kind of mostly work hand in hand, but request we discussed that there are two things broadly in IT service management: incident and request. And there are the other couple of things like change, release, problem. They're different processes. Our scope is not to cover ITIL or ITSM, but since we are talking about service now, so request plays a very important role. Requests are services which are standard, and anybody who's entitled for it can go and fill in a form and request for that. Maybe I took an example of a telecom service which probably most of us are availing, and we can always go and request for services like additional SIM card or additional data. So those are requests. They're standard services they offer. They have it on their menu. They say you want this, this is how much it is going to cost. So they have all that predefined. You request for it, and that is fulfilled rather quickly than resolution of an incident. Incident is surprise. It it's a complaint by someone saying I was using your service and it stopped working, or the quality is not as it used to be earlier. So that's an incident, which is something is broken, break fix. But request are standard services which a vendor offer, a service provider offer, and then users who are consuming those services can ask for or request for additional services via requests. Each request has its own form, because uh, requesting for a 4G SIM will have a different set of questions. You want a nano, you want a micro, you want a mini, uh, such questions. Requesting for a data, additional data, will have a different set of questions, like how much data you want. Do you want to the ability to be unused data to be rolled over, and all those things. So requests in system has different, each and every request is unique. And a request, as I said, uses a standard fulfillment process. So we can automate it by using workflows. Workflows look more like a flow chart, which starts at a point, performs certain actions, take decisions, check conditions, and eventually moves towards the end. We'll show an example of workflow also. So request, when you talk about request, most of them do have a workflow behind that, but that does not mean workflows are limited to requests. You can define workflows for other areas like change, problem, even incident. If you think your priority for incidents, the lowest priority incidents always goes to service desk, and then they go to a standard procedure of investigation by certain other teams. You can define a workflow. Mostly I've seen workflows for you know uh, for for situations where we think there's a predefined path. There could be some variable factor in there, but more or less you have a predefined path. You have a start, you have a beginning, you have an end, and you know what all possible directions we can go in based on inputs. So in these situations you can use workflows. I'll quickly cover another topic which is not listed here, which is new in ServiceNow. It's called Flow Designer, FLOW, Flow Designer. Okay. Workflows are meant to be developed by developers, coders, those who can write script. They are a little complex for for the simple user to comprehend. I'm not talking about the people who are consuming it. I'm talking about people who are admins, but they're not developers. They know, how to switch on and off. They can go and make certain configuration changes, but they cannot write scripts. So in ServiceNow, you'll find different, family of developers. There are core developers who can actually write a lot of script. Then there are admins who can only go and are responsible in their role to just go and make configuration changes, create groups, align users to those groups, and all that stuff. So their work is more like a housekeeping. It's not an engineering work as such. So when you talk about engineering, it's more for developer work. So Flow Designer is a new introduction in ServiceNow. It came in, I think, London release, a release or two ago, and that's for admins to be able to create simple flows using a very intuitive drag and drop user interface. It does have its own limitation. It doesn't really compete head to head with workflow, because workflows have a massive. They've got a lot of components which you can use. Flow designers, they're still young, they're evolving. They're just two release or probably three release old. They're making their space, but they are said and supposed to be low code or no code ability for people to design flows in ServiceNow. Okay, so it definitely focuses on, you know, zero code approach, and it's more intuitive. Use drag and drop and your job will be done. But as I said, workflows, they can't at this point, the state they are in, the maturity level it has, it cannot replace workflows. At some point, maybe in future it will, but at this point, another year or two, I don't think they'll be able to replace workflows, because workflows are very complex. I mean, you can have a very, very complex workflow design in your system, and you cannot do that. There's no chance you can do that in Flow Designer. There's no way you can do that. So they are meant for, you know, very simple linear flows with one or task activities, and that's all. Uh, so you can read about Flow Designer. That's the latest uh, component. I'm not covering that in these sessions, but you know, after this series, what I was thinking is maybe, you know, on a weekly basis, or I cannot commit based on my schedule and bandwidth. Maybe I'll be posting some videos on a specific topics, like, you know, specifically around Flow Designer or specifically around something else. So maybe that'll add, that will be a top up for this series. So people who would like to go further, they can keep referring those videos. They'll be useful, but those will cover one topic at a time. They'll not be like these working sessions. We have got 5 topics and 2 hour long session, and we're talking and working things on the live sessions. But I'm sure that they will be useful as well. All right, so let's begin with update sets today. So I have this. Let me share my this thing, my ServiceNow instance. All right. So hope you guys can see that. Now, give me a second here. Now let's imagine I want to create a table. Let's take a very simple example. I want to create a table at this point, and I want to make sure I capture it so that I can move it to the other instance. So first step in that is to create an update set. So I'll just type update set. Just update should be okay. And you'll see this module called system, this application called system update sets, or menu, whatever you want to call it. I'm still have this hangover of calling it an application, because that's what they used to call it a couple of years ago. Then they started calling it menu and menu items, but I used to call them application and modules, and I'll still keep calling them. I like them that way, so that's okay. They sometimes do call these modules, but sometimes in documentation they call it menu and menu items, but the application and modules as well. So once you have this system update set application and the module, so next thing you have to do is go to local update sets. Okay. We'll talk about the rest of them later on, but at this point, the step one is to create an update set. So we have to go and create a local update set. I'll click on that, and you see this new button. There's a couple of update sets already in system created. You can see here, but I'll create a new update set. Okay, and I want to give it any name. I mean, you can choose to give name of your choice, but following a nomenclature does help. So you can define a nomenclature for your organization, which might have a developer name, a small, description of what it captures, and date when it was created, and so on and so forth. For the sake of example, imagine I want to create a table which stores uh, service desk agent phone numbers. I mean, you'll find that information in the user table for sure. I mean, you'll find it, but or maybe, let's do this. Let's add one field to the user table. So let's go and see. Uh, let's see the user table, right? There's some information on this form. Maybe we want to add a field here, that field that doesn't exist, or maybe it exists. I just want to change the layout. So maybe, secondary phone number, and I want to bring on the phone number field on the form, and I want to add another field called secondary phone number. Okay, let's do that. I think that makes sense. Okay, and let's go back and let's go to local update sets. I'm still here. That's fine. So the name. So add phone fields to user form. I'm giving it this name, but as I said, having a nomenclature does help. So you might want to have, you know, have your update sets prefixed with the developer initials, and, followed by the date when it was created. So it will give you some idea of, who did it, when it was done, and so on. So you can use that. You can evolve. You can think of more options. What do you want to do that with that? State will leave it in progress. The three states: complete, in progress, ignore. We'll leave it as it is. You can have parent-child update set relationship. So when the parent update set is applied, the child update sets also gets applied. There are situations where you would like to apply a bunch of update sets together. You can have parent-child relationship with them. So one update set can have one parent, obviously. That means a parent can have multiple childs. And that makes sense. A child can have another child, and that child, grandchild can have another child, great grand, and so on. I mean, it can have a depth, it can have a depth of, I don't think there's a limit, but it can have, logically you should be able to think and club them in the way you want to apply them. Release date, it's just a date time field. Maybe just a date. It's a date time field. It's just a text. It's just for reference. It's not going to be used anywhere. It's just for your reference. It's not something that will play, or bring or trigger something. It's not going to do that. Description, you can add description. It's a good idea to add description. So, add default phone and additional new new field on user form in default view. Okay, I don't want to show it on the self-service or other views. In the default view, we did discuss views, right? Two choices I have: submit and make current. So what does that mean? This form is definitely letting me create an update set. This update set is like a container which will store all the configuration and code changes that I'll do once I create this. That point onwards, everything it will store. But there's one more step before it starts recording your changes, and that is you have to set it. You have to set it somewhere to say, okay, now this is my current update sets, because you can have multiple update set in the system, and multiple of them being in progress. That's okay. So maybe you have 20 update sets in progress, and at a point you think, these changes which I'm doing, I want to capture in an update set called ABC or XYZ. So you should have an option to select one of them being the current update set. So there are two choices. You just submit, and then you select it from that option. I'll show you where that option is. The second is click this button, which is going to create this update set and also going to make it current. So I'm not going to click this one because that of course will set it to current automatically. I'll click submit and I'll show you how to manually set that. So my update set is created. You go here, you click on this settings wheel, the cog icon on the right hand side, and in the developer section, you see this update set, right? You select an update set from here. You select and set that. Now it says your current update set has been changed to whatever the name I gave. I may also, choose to show update set picker in the header. So you see there's one drop down here which talks about applications. Similarly, I can have an update set drop down up there by switching it on. So if I switch it on, it brings in here. I have another drop down, so I can simply go and select an update set from here as well. It's I don't prefer this because it's anyways small and you have to do that and you might accidentally switch it back, but here I think it's a little bigger than that, and once you set, you'll not be able to switch it. I mean, you can, but it will not accidentally get switched over. But at the other hand, some people say, having it on top always gives you a chance to see, oh, you're on the right update set. Mostly people, sometimes people, not mostly, but sometimes people end up capturing updates in a different update set, which is not intended. And then they at a later point realize, oh, I captured in the wrong update set. Then they have to manually move those changes from one update set to another, which becomes a task in itself. It's a messy task, but it is doable. You can move updates from one update set to another, but having it in here gives you a chance at always making sure your update set is right. It's there on your face right in front. So I'll leave it there for now. So let's go back to local update set once again and see what the structure of an update set looks like. I created it, but once I created, we see these couple of related lists in the bottom. Child update sets, update set logs, customer updates. So once I start making changes, you'll see entries coming in here under customer updates. You'll see all of them coming here. And child update sets, of course, if I create some children, if I create another update set and set this one as a on the parent field of that one, you'll see that in here. So all of such update sets will come here. Logs definitely talks about when the update sets are applied from one instance to another, what happened, did everything went well, anything went wrong, etc. So it's an empty update set, it's an empty container for now. Let's go and make some changes and we'll see some entries coming under customer updates. Okay, so we said we'll be making changes to the user form. I'll go in there. This is the user form, so I'll open it. I want to make some changes. So first thing, maybe I would like to see, am I in default view? I am in default view, right? I am in default view because that's a view I want to make changes in. So as I said, every form and list can have multiple views, and views differ in terms of what they show. So I want to change the default view, not everything. So I'll go in here, I'll go to configure a form layout, maybe form design, whatever you want. I just want to put additional field in the form. So I've done that. It's still loading. So waiting, it's coming now. So business phone, I want it here. So I'll click it. I use the arrow, or I can double click. And what else do we have? Do we have mobile phone? Yes, we have mobile phone. I want this here. We have home phone. No, nothing like that. Okay, let me add another field called secondary phone. Okay, that's what we thought we'll do. Now there's a choice. You want to have it as number, you want to have it as string, there's a specific phone number E164 format type. This ensures the phone number is correct, it has the right code, etc. Let's use that and see how it looks like. So now I have these 3 phone number fields. in here, and maybe I would like to, okay, let's save this and see where they appear. Do we want to uh, reposition them? Okay, it's done. Close it. So to reload, bring me back to the user form. They are here. I think they look okay, right? They look okay. So look at this secondary phone, right? You have a choice of choosing country and then giving the number. So that's the phone number I-164 format. These are like simple text with no validations and no ability to select country, etc. So that's all. That's all I wanted to do. Now let's go back to our update set. A quick way to go to your update set is by clicking on this icon, view current update set. I can always go to local and search for my update set and open it. I can alternatively click on this and it's going to open my current update set. And you see there are 3 entries now under customer updates. So it recorded whatever I did. So if I'm going to make any other changes, form layouts, list layouts, coding, anything, it's going to store that. It doesn't store data. So if I go and create new user, if I go and create new incident, that's data. It's not going to capture data. It's going to capture configuration and coding changes. Okay, it's not going to capture data. So now we see there are a couple of changes that it has recorded. If I open one of them, you'll see exactly what it is. This is XML, right? I told you ServiceNow stores everything as XML in system. So this is what gets stored in the database for this change, and ServiceNow platform knows what to do with this when it comes back to browser and showing and hiding and doing whatever this update is intended to do. So everything gets stored as an XML. Now, uh, now if you think your work is done, that is all you wanted to capture in your update set, that was the requirement, I can go and mark it as complete. Okay, or if you think you don't need it, you can ignore will not roll back changes. So any changes that you have done which are captured here, adding those 2 fields, if you ignore, you'll not be able to roll it back. That ignore doesn't mean roll back. Ignore means just ignore. Rollback, there are 2 options to roll back. One is ServiceNow gives you an option to back out an update set. Back out an update set on a particular instance when it is applied by pulling over from another instance. So right now I'm sitting on this instance. I created this update set, and let me update it, mark it as complete. You see this option of backing out. Right? You can back out. I personally don't back out. My experience had not been good with that, but that's years ago. You may try. In simple situations, it probably works, but sometimes I've seen it makes unwanted changes, and then you have to dig in and to find what happened, what went wrong. So in my definition of backing out, what I do is I create another update set and kind of revert my changes manually. I'll take those fields off the form. Maybe I'll leave the new field which I added, but I'll just take them off the form, and that is okay. And I'll apply that update set on top of this one, which is as good as backing out. So I don't actually back out in that sense. Also, we saw on components like business rules, script includes, there's a version, versioning. You can always switch to a particular version. You can revert to that from that option. But backing out form changes is something, I do manually. I don't prefer backing out updates. It's like this. I don't know. I'm scared because I did it a couple of years ago and it just went wrong, leaving me to decide what went wrong, because I had hundreds of customer updates here, and then I didn't know what really was backed out, what wasn't, because it definitely looked like it didn't completely back it out. I'm not saying this is faulty. Maybe something was with my update set. I don't use it. I prefer having a top-up update set to back out my changes manually. All right, so now my update set is complete. It's done. How do I apply it on another instance? Okay, I need another instance for this. So let me Go and do this. First thing, you know, let me share my, so keep a note of this, this instance. Okay, we'll have to use it on that target instance. So now I'll share my another screen. So this is my another ServiceNow instance. Imagine this is my test instance. That one was my developer instance. This is my test instance. So I have to apply those changes on my test instance now. So if I go to the user form here, we'll not see those fields because they were never added here. So we do have business phone, mobile phone. We don't have the secondary phone in here. Okay. So yeah, maybe I took them out at some point in out of the box and I never brought them back. But here you can see we have these two, but we don't have the third one. Okay. Now how do I apply my update set here? Now you again go to update set application. Now we are sitting on the target, the instance where we want to apply. So applying update set is a pull and apply mechanism. It's not push. So I cannot sit on the source instance where my code is and push it to the target instance. No, I have to sit on the target instance because that is up in the stack, and then you have to pull it from the source instance, which is at the bottom. So you have to pull it. So first thing I need to do is create an update source, because now I want to establish a connection between these two instances. So I'm sitting on the target instance where I want to apply the update set and I want to pull it. So first thing is I have to establish a connection. For that I go to update sources and there's nothing here. I'll click new and I, you know, I want let I want to give credentials and details of my source instance. So let me call it developer instance. You can give it any name, in dev instance or whatever name you want. It has no relevance whether it's your test, production, or dev instance. It's just a field for for data storage. I mean, it doesn't really, it's a categorization. It has no relevance. Even if I say it's production, there's no difference. Okay. So development instance, I want to be true with that. And what is the URL, right? Now we have to give the URL. That's my URL. That's my source instance URL, the one I copied. It's dev76579 and this one is 88982. Okay, they're different. So I'll give this URL as my source URL. You'll have to give a credential, a username, password set, which should have this ability. An admin account is probably what is required. So if you don't have an admin account, go and you don't want to use the default one, create another user with any name and password of your choice and assign them an admin role and use that as a username password here. Is this active or not? Yes, it is active. Short description, no, I don't want to give anything. Let's go and test connection. So I've clicked on that. Let's see if it says connection is okay. However, parent instance, let me bring it back again. Just parent instance major version is Paris and doesn't match your local version. So this one is in Orlando, and that was Paris. So ServiceNow recommend that the two instances between which you want to pull and apply, they should be on the same version. That's their recommendation. And this one is in Orlando, that's on Paris. I have not yet updated this to Paris, that's why I'm getting that error. But let's go and see if ServiceNow still lets me perform pull and apply. So I'll submit it. So my, you know, uh, again it's giving me the same error. That's okay. Let's see if it still lets me pull and apply. So I'll go in here, dev instance, I'll open it. Now I see this big green button which says retrieve completed update sets. Okay. Now if I'll click this, ServiceNow, this instance will connect to this instance using this credential and it will pull all the update sets from that instance which are marked completed and they are not here. They're not already pulled here. So it's not one-to-one pull where you can say, I want to pull this update set. This is about pulling all the update sets which are marked as complete on source and they are not yet present in this instance. So anything between now and if I pull now, it's going to pull all of those update sets. But if I pull again, if I do retrieve again, immediately it's not going to pull anything because everything that was there, which was not here and was completed, is already pulled. So it always pulls that difference, the delta. Anything which is not here and present on the source and mark complete is pulled. There's another way to apply one update set of your choice if you want, and that is a manual way. And let me go back and show you this. So this is option to export to XML, right? So if you click on that, it is going to export this update set as an XML file, you see? And then you can manually go on your source instance, on your target instance, sorry, like this, and then go to this retrieved update sets, okay? And from here you have an option to import update set from XML, and you can import that update set as an XML from here. In case you don't want to pull, you want to just export and import update set as an XML manually because you just want that one to be pulled, you can do that this way. Generally, I don't see a reason why would someone do that, but I've seen people doing it at times. So retrieve completed update set. So if I go to retrieved update set anyways, we have nothing here, right? There's no update set that has ever been retrieved from any instance. And mind you, you can have multiple update source, right? I mean, I've created one, I can create 10 more. So one instance can be connected to multiple instance and it can pull update sets from all those. And that is your choice, how do you want to do it. But every such connection will have its own retrieve button. So when you pull from one instance, you can't pull from 10 instances altogether. You have to go into each update set record, update source record, and click on this. So let me click on this, okay, and let's see what happens. It's going to show me a progress bar. It's going to show me what it is doing, and it's trying to pull, etc. So it says update sets retrieved and previewed succeeded in 1 second. So two update sets have been retrieved. That's what it says. So two of them, and that's okay. Uh, this one belongs to me, right? This is my update set. That could be someone else's update set, and that is okay if it got uh, pulled because they marked it as complete. Maybe when they will go and try to pull, nothing will happen, but they'll still find their update set here because it's already pulled. So that is fine. Pull does not mean it's already applied. It's just pulled. So let me open this, my update set. I'm on the target instance now. And this is how it looks like, right? If I scroll down, I see all of those 3 customer updates here. And important thing to note is state. It says previewed. So ServiceNow do two things. There's a preview and then there's a commit. So preview means it just compares whatever has been pulled. Is that causing any problem? Is there an issue with anything with that? If we're going to apply that, so it kind of previews it. If applying an update set will cause some problem, and if there's any problem, it will tell you upfront. So there'll be error messages on top, and you'll see some error messages in here as well. If there's a problem with your update set. It also tells you, if you're doing inserts and updates and deletions and what's the total, from where it has been pulled, etc. And it's loaded, it's there in the system, but it has not yet made any changes. So if I go and open the users form again, I still don't see the secondary phone number, right? Now if I go and apply this, so there's an option to run preview again. If you want to run it, if you have a doubt, just rerun it. If you think you want to check it one more time, that is fine. There's nothing wrong with this, no errors. And I'll commit it now. So if I press commit, now it is going to apply those changes to my instance, the target instance. So update set is committed. I'll close it. The state is committed now. This committed field has a value. So you know when it was loaded and when it was committed, right? It's reloading itself and everything went fine. And you can probably go and see commit logs. It is what it says. So you know, so it's loading updates 1 to 3 and it's making all those changes. It's just a log if you want to debug something. The form is here. Let's reload this form to see if it brings up the third field. Right now we see the secondary phone number is here. So what I did on my developer instance, I captured it in my update set. I went on to the target instance, I pulled it and I applied it, and now it's here. So now I don't have to recode everything on all instances. You can use update sets to move your code from one instance to another. All right. So that is how you use update sets. That was topic number 1. Let's talk about ACLs real quick. Let me go back to my original instance. So when we created logbook application module, we noticed if I click on this edit module option, you'll notice that it is limited to this role called U logbook user. System automatically created one role for me when I created this application. So when I was creating a table, it gave me an option to create application and modules and everything. At that point, it also created a role for me. Let's go to the roles module and we'll search for this role. Okay, and logbook, that's my role. Okay, now we'll look at it in detail. So what uh, does it has? So this role, it doesn't have a child role. It does apply to this role application, this module. So there's nothing very specific about it, right? Maybe if I do right click and configure and related list, I would like to bring in one more related list here, which is called access to. Okay, I'll bring it here. I'm adding one more related list. It's there now, the fourth one. Now this is important. This has these 4 ACLs. So I told you role kind of clubs ACL together. How a role knows what all access it has. It is controlled by the access control lists or ACLs it is mapped to. So if you notice, this is an out of this role has been created by system on its own when we created this application, and it created 4 ACLs also, and it mapped those 4 ACLs to this role. Let's open and see what these 4 ACLs are. Okay, 1, 2. I'm just right clicking on this eye icon, and from there I'm using open new tab. Alternatively, you can go to access control list, access control module here under system security. I just type access control, and if I go and I want to search for this, maybe generally your ACL names start with the table name on which your roles these ACLs are based. So my table is u underscore logbook. So anything that starts with u logbook, I can see in here, right? So alternatively, you can go and select, filter roles, ACLs from here. Otherwise, you can go to roles and have that related list called access to, and from there directly you'll see what all ACLs are mapped to that. This list view is little more, it has more information than what was there on the role. At least it tells me the operation. You see, create, delete, read, write. So there definitely are database operations. Create a record, delete a record, read a record, update a record, and that's what they do. So let me close this, because from here I have to it just tells me the mapping of role to ACL. It doesn't really tell me the details of ACL. So details of ACL you'll find here. Let me open the first one and let's see what it has. So there's a type, of course it's record, because we want to control creation of record in this table. So record type operation is create. It's active. Admin overrides means this HCL will not matter anything to admins. I'm not obliged as an admin to comply with this ACL to gain access to this table. Anybody else who's not admin needs to have this role to be able to create a record in this table. And if they don't have a role, they'll not be able to do that. Name and then some description. And look at this, the role which is mapped to this. So if a user has this role, they can create a record in this table. That is that simple. Yes, so role is one thing. Let's go and see the other ACLs. So I've got delete, I've got read, I've got write. So record deletion in this table, you need to have this role. To even read a record in this table, you need to have this role. And similarly to write in this table, you need to have this role. That is what ACLs do. They just lets you configure, read, write, delete, and update operations on a given table to a specific role. Now, ACLs are not that simple. They can get complex. You can have ACLs which can have scripts, complex scripts written inside them. Let me open this one and let's go and see what it has. So no, this is also a simple one, but it has multiple roles. So if the user has any of these roles, it's not that they need to have all of these roles. So any of these roles would mean they comply with this ACL. They comply with this access policy and they should be able to perform a read operation in this UI page table. Okay, and if I have, let's go and create a new ACL. So I don't see a new button right here. Okay, the reason is ACLs are a secure, a high security mechanism. So even as an admin, they'll not let you go and create it straight away. What you have to do is click on your name on this drop down, select this option called elevate roles. Okay, elevate roles and elevate it to security admin. I have to check this box, and it is a this elevation is limited to this session. Once I log out, it's gone. Again, if you want to do such changes like access, ACL modification, creation, etc., you have to elevate your roles by clicking on that, choosing elevate roles, checking on this button and press OK. So it kind of opens up a little more than usual configuration options, coding options for admins, some things which are considered to be having in high security. So now I see this new button. So if I click on that, now I can create ACL of my choice. There are a couple of other options in here. Maybe you can read about them, but generally record level ACLs are used. And you have options to create, read, write, delete. Then you have other options, whether you want people to be able to edit from the list on a particular table. You have to give the table name here. Oops. So you want them to be able to edit records on this table from list or not, and if they have this role, add a role here, they can. Similarly, my intention to show you was this. Now we see this condition also, right? Condition also. So you can put in some conditions as well, which in addition to role, the user needs to comply with this as well. So if they're trying to edit a record from the list in this logbook table, if the record state is still to contact and they have this role, maybe I'll add whatever role, maybe the same logbook role. They need to comply with both of these so that the overall ACL complies. So they need to have this role or any of the roles if I list more than one, and they need to meet, and the condition and the record needs to meet this condition. So in my list I can have 20 records, some of them in a state called still to contact, some of them being in a state called contacted. So only which are in still to contact, I would like users with this role to be able to edit those records from the list view. Okay. There's an option, if I click on advanced, you can write script also. So you can write a complex server-side script here, which can perform a specific logic to decide whether a user should be granted access or not. So everything it does, in the end, it has to return, either return something like this, return true, sorry, not this, true or false. It has to return true or false. True means granted, false means not granted, or set answer variable to true or false. Answer is a very important global variable, I would say, in ServiceNow. It's used, you'll see it's used in most of the places where we want to return output of a particular script as a boolean, as a true or false. So you set answer is equals to true. That means the script execution went as expected, and all our condition matches, whatever we with our business logic matches, and I want to let user be able to comply with this ACL. Right. So you do this. You write ifs and whatever complex script you want. In the end, it expects you to do this, true or false. So when all these three are present, the order in which they are present, that's the order in which they're evaluated. First of all, it sees if logged in user has one of these roles. If they don't have any of these roles, there's no point evaluating conditions and script, because they have to meet all these three things. Only then the ACL will be considered as complied. If role matches one of the roles present, if they have one of the roles present in the list, then the next simple thing is to check condition, because script evaluation is time consuming. I mean, it's definitely a fraction of a second, but still, in terms of intensity, scripts take more times to evaluate than conditions. So then the second thing is condition, and if that matches, that is when system evaluates condition. So this is given here. So roles and condition, then scripts. Okay. Usually, system creates ACLs for you when you create new tables, etc. But if you want to put in restriction on existing modules and tables and forms and operations, you can create ACLs of your preference, and you have to elevate your roles before you do that. And once you elevate, you see this padlock as well, tell you are in elevated mode. So if I click on that, uncheck it, yes, okay. So the padlock is gone. I don't see new button here, so it's de-elevation, if that's a word. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, you downgraded your access. Now you don't want those high privilege things. You don't want to do them. All right, so that is ACL. I'll come back to the questions. Keep putting them in chat. In the end, towards the end of the session, I'll cover them. Okay. Now, the next topic on our list is script includes. Okay. Now, script includes, as I said, reusable scripts which you can write to consume on your server-side scripts. So I've written a set of functions, and I want to call them from other places. So you can do it in script include. Let me show you the script include. So you just type script include in here, click on that. This morning I created some samples for us, so I'll probably show you them. So the first is, I call them my common functions. I don't know why. So I created the script include, okay. Uh, Let me go and create one because that will be more useful. This doesn't tell you what exactly is happening. So it's all blank, right? There was a lot written in the previous one, but this one is blank. Now, what's the first step? So first step is to give it a name. So say for example, I have I want to have a script include where I want to put in all my validation functions, email validation, number validations, string validations, whatever validations probably I think I will ever do. Uh, I'll keep enhancing it to add more functions, but I want a point where from where I can start. So let me give it a name. So let's give it a name called common validations example, and I'm just pressing tab, and you notice it kind of populates the script field with some content already. Now if you notice, the name of the script include this variable name here and this prototype, something here before the prototype. It's all the same. It has to stay that way. Even this, you shouldn't be changing it. Okay, just uh, remember, you shouldn't change it at any point. Once you decided, you have decided. If you change anything in here, if it doesn't reflect here, you have to go and change it manually. Otherwise your script include will not work. Okay, now I have the script include. I'll right click and I'll save. Okay, now I've saved my script include, and it has nothing, right? There's just one function called initialize, does nothing. It's I don't know if you, I mean, it's called constructor. I don't want to go in there, but system definitely creates one out of the box, one default function for you. So say for example, I want to put in a function which validates emails. Colon. So this is a syntax you have to follow when you're writing functions in script includes, right? This is how it has to be. You can use this nomenclature which is given at the top. So the function name, colon, then function keyword, bracket open close, and then whatever you want to put in these brackets is the function which is going to be executed. You can pass in parameters. Say for example, email uh, to validate. I'll be passing email address which I want to validate, and then I'll do something to validate in here. I'll have to write a script to do that validation. And if it is I can go and quickly, let's go and quickly pull out some usable function. uh, Validate email in JavaScript. There are a lot of pre-built function which you can probably use. Code project should have something. Okay, they do have this, this whole thing. I'll just copy paste it. So let's see what it is doing. So it is pulling up some email address from this field which is present on the form. I don't want to do it because I'll be passing the email. So I'll just set this to my argument, my attribute which I'm passing in this function. So this is my email to validate. It has its function. That's okay. I don't want to change it. Whatever. And then it's giving us an alert. I don't want to do it. It's a server side thing. So what I will probably do is return false, which means it's not a correct email address. Okay. And then if test passes, I'll put an else here and return true. So now I have this function in my validate, not validates. So validate email. Okay, I've created one function which validates email. It expects you to pass it the email address. It validates that and it tells you whether it's right or wrong. Unnecessary escape. I don't know. There's some problem. It's an information, not an error exactly. Let's go and save this. Now, similarly, I can create as many functions as I want, but it has to be within this class. Okay, it has to be within these two curly braces. So you copy paste it and rename it, do your logic, and do what return if you want to. And in the end, you need to have this comma. Make sure you have it, otherwise you'll get an error like this. You'll not be able to understand why you're getting it because it says something else. So it usually happens. People end up having trouble with that. So make sure you have this comma here. So when you create, you see the first one has a comma. So it's just about following what they have done. It's simple. Don't make a mistake there. So I'll save it. Now I want to use it, right? So for example, let's go back to our logbook and let's add an email field there. Common validation. So, maybe just add another field which we will pass to this function and see if it's valid or not. So just a name, contact email. So what it should be a string because that's what it's going to store, a string, and 100-character long string at least, not 40. That's too small. And I'll save this. It's done. Then I have this, right? So once the user submits it, I want to make sure I check it on the server side, and if it is not the right email address, I will stop him from saving it. So that means I need to write a business rule because on save I want to control it. That's when I'm going to call my script include, do the validation and let them probably proceed or stop. So let's create new business rule on our logbook table and let's call it validate email. You can give it whatever name you think is appropriate. And logbook is my table. I want to do it on insert and update. I want to do it on both places. And it's not a simple field setting and just a botting. Maybe it's a little advanced. So before an insert or update happens. So not after it is done, before it happens. If it is after, I'll choose after option. But in my case, it definitely is before. So before an insert and update happens. And of course, contact email is not empty, right? So if it is not empty and you're trying to insert or update a record on this table, I want to perform this validation. Here's where I'm going to write my script. So my script include, right? So script include, let's open it in another tab. It's called common validations. So first of all, I have to create an object of this script include. It's a class, right? It's a class, so I have to create an object of that class so that I can call functions from within that class. That's how you do it. You create classes and you create objects for those classes and use their functions. So where whatever name you want to give it, I want to give it the same name, common validations obj. And that's my way. You can give it any name of your choice, and then new keyword common validations and semicolon. So this pretty much standard. This will remain as it is, where give it a name of your choice is equals to new and then the name of the script include whatever name you have given. So this is how you create object of a script include. If your script include is like this, it's a class based script include, which is a default script include. So you have to create an object like this. Once you have created, now you can use the functions. So if I do common validations dot, and this is my function, validate email. Okay, and it expects an argument. It expects an email address. So my email address is present in my current record, which is these are the functions. So if I go to my logbook again, so email address field name, I want that field name because I'll have to pass the value in that. So contact email is the field we created. I'll right click on that, and its name is u underscore contact underscore email. I'll copy this. So current dot this, that's my email address. We discussed current represents the current record getting inserted or updated in this table, and dot field name is going to give me the value in that field. Now I'm calling it, I have passed this email, but it returns true or false, right? We saw it returns true or false. Some functions may not return anything, but some do. So it's returning something. So I have to store that in in a variable. So what I'll do is where uh, validation result. That's another variable I've used, which will store the value which comes out from here. And if this validation result is equals to false, if it is false, what I'll do is I'll have to abort the operation. Okay, I want to stop them from saving. So how do I do that? There's a set abort there's a set abort of function. I think it was a GS object. Let me quickly go and check. GS.set abort, that's what it was. Let me just give me a second. Let me try to find this out real quick. Okay, current. So it's on the current object, this method current.set abort action, and you true or false, just pass true. So this is going to abort the current operation of insert or update. So if the email address is not right, I'm not letting them save it. Okay. So again, this is a business rule which runs before an insert happens on this table, and the contact email is this field is not empty. I go in, I create an object of my script include, I call the function from that object, pass it the email address using current object, the value it returns, I'm comparing it, and if it is validation result is false, I'm just aborting it. Okay, let's see if it works. Guys, yesterday we 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 didn't do that, you know, event. We did saw it got scheduled in future, but that difference, that mathematics, we were not able to do. I've done that as well. I'll show you. So okay, let me give it something which is easy for us to understand. So I this so this agent should be contacted. So the preferred date and time is 21:30, 2nd of August, and 15 minutes before this time comes, this agent should get an email. So 15 minutes would have selected. You can select 30 minutes. So if I select 30, that means at 2100 hours on 2nd of August, the agent should be contacted. Let me show you the event log also, because yesterday we were not able to see that. And it's all sorted default, so there's nothing as such here. Let's go and try and save this. Okay, let's try to save this. Let's see what happens. So see, invalid insert, it is not letting me insert because this email address is not right. We'll add a more, let's go and add a more reasonable message, something which makes more sense. Okay, let me bring up this business rule again. That's my email business rule. So I'll add a message which makes more sense. And how do I do this is just before operate, aborting gs dot add. Now you have two options to add an error message or add an info message. Error messages are, red, and these are probably green. So GS is as I said, a useful object, a global object, which we have used a lot, and you'll also use it when you do development. So GS is a very common object which is very frequently used. So I want to add an error message, and then give some error message. Email address is not correct. Save this, and I'll have to reload the form. Maybe just I can submit it one more time. The business rule will come into play. It's updated. So now you see email address is not correct, but still we have this error called invalid insert. You cannot get past this. This will stay. If you are doing set abort, system will display this message. There's no way you can get rid of that, and that's a custom message. Okay, let's go and create a valid record. Anything in the event log? So this one is there, and process on 2100 hours, right? So again, let's go and check this. So I'm clicking on new, and let's select this, and let it select the user on its own. So let's give it 2115 is when we decided we should be contacting them. ABC at that looks like a valid email address, right? Agent to be notified. Let's pull Mr. Abraham Lincoln. 30 minutes. So if we decided that we should be contacting them on 1st of August at 21:15, and 30 minutes prior to that, we want this person, the agent, to be notified. Sorry, agent here, agent to be notified. That means the event should be queued to be processed on 2045, right? 30 minutes prior to this time, because that's what we chose here. Let's submit it. Okay, fair enough. So, let's go to our business rule which we created, and probably we'll have to, where's that business rule? Yeah, this one. So probably we'll have to debug this code to see whether, the script include we created, the function we copy pasted is working as expected or not. It seems there's something wrong with the script include code which we copy pasted. So you can debug that to see why it's not working. But for now I'll just comment it out because we want to go ahead. There's as I told you, there's this information icon definitely tells you something is wrong. Maybe I'll have to put it in double quotes or something, but you need to see what is wrong with this piece of code to make it work. For now what I'll do is I'll just comment all of this, Okay, and just return true. I want to just bypass this one. Okay, because now I want to show you the other thing, the event queue. So we did saw the validation and the usage of script include, but if I want to save it now, okay, so it's saved, and let's go and see if it created, right? This is the one it just created, and I'm filtering on that. It's queued. Look at this. It is set to be processed on 20:45. So 30 minutes prior to the appointment time, which was 21:15 for the record. So this event got queued here, and it will be processed exactly on this time. And then we have a notification based on this event, which will go out to the agent on that time. And the business rule, which we were writing yesterday, and probably, you know, the way you're trying to do it was not right. Let's, okay, this is test script include, not this one. Uh, let me sort. Oh, it's already sorted. Yes. Yeah, trigger email to agent. This was the business rule. And if we go to the advanced option, right, so subtract is a method, simple method. So we are subtracting the delay which we have set from the actual date time which we have selected in that field when we want the agent to contact the user. So this is the preferred date time agent selected on the current record. We are storing it in this variable. It's a glide date time uh, class we are using to declare it, and then we are using the subtract method to subtract the amount of delay. uh, in this case, maybe we can, it's not delay, it's prepone. You can give it a, another name, that's okay, but it's there, we used it yesterday. So it's not actually delay, it's preponing. So if I do prepone and I put it here everywhere, I think that's going to work. So I've created another time object called prepone, and then I'm setting its value to 00 colon, which is fixed, and then the minutes which I've selected, and then in hours, in seconds in 00, which eventually returns something like this. If I select 30 minutes there, this is what it finally expects, and this is what is going to come out. We have used string concatenation. We discussed yesterday, it's string concatenation, where we are doing strings, these set of characters in double quotes, and then there's a variable in between, and we use plus to combine them to make something like that. So it's just a bit of a scripting there, and then subtract that duration from the date time which we have selected, and accordingly schedule the event. And the last parameter is this date time will be calculated. Okay, and that was script include. There's another types of script includes also. One is this class based script include, right? We have a class. There's another function based script include, where you just have one function in that script include. I'll show you an example of that real quick. And that function has the same name as the script include, and it's the only function. My global functions, maybe. Yeah, this one. Look at this. It's very simple. There's a script include name, and that's a function name. Very simple script include with one function. And when you have to call it, you don't have to create an object for it. Just straight away call it. I'll show you maybe. So that's another type of script include. You can go and read more about different types, but in general, that's what script includes are: clubbing your reusable functions together and using them in your server-side scripts, business rules, and all that stuff. The last topic for today, request and workflows. Okay, now let's go and create a request and a workflow behind that request. Okay, this is getting intense now. It's a last topic, and it's a vast topic. We just have We are already 1.5 hours past since we started, but let's try to finish it in next 15 minutes. Now I have to create a request. First of all, let me show you the existing requests, right? So service catalog is the module where you see all the service requests. And I think we went through it at some point. So these are the categories. Under each category you have, set of requests which are there. Like you want to request a laptop, and what kind of a laptop it is. So many different types of laptops. On desktops you want printers, you go in here. It's a subcategory for hardware, and then you have different types of printers. But if I open one of them, you'll see you know get a picture, some details, and you can order it. Doesn't need any input as such, but there could be requests where some inputs are required. Some fields, maybe let's go into developer laptop. Yeah, see, it has some inputs. What all softwares would you like to have? Some comments, etc. So these forms are unique, right? This one is different from that. This developer laptop Mac look and feel is probably different from the standard laptop. Yeah, it has a different set of fields. Two options. There were different options maybe. And the first one we saw didn't have any options at all. If I go to a different category, maybe software, requests in that will have altogether different set of fields, if at all. This one doesn't have anything. They don't want any inputs. The other one may, fireworks maybe. These are all softwares. Let's quickly see if this is anything which has got a field. Yeah, this one. This has got a couple of fields here. Yeah. So each of these forms are unique, right? So they are not like incident form or a change form where the form stays the same. You go and keep creating as many records you want. This form will be the same for this form will be the same for all changes. This is consistent, right? But request forms, they are all different. And they're in system you'll find huge number of requests. People design a lot of requests because they are automated by workflows, and they save a lot of time for the support staff. They are standard self-routed and all of that stuff. So service catalog again. So this is where you go and see all your requests which are there in the system as a user, right? Some top requests and all that stuff. People can go to service portal. So again, it's called SP, I think the default one. So your end users probably will go to the self-service portal, a more user friendly, and then they probably click on request something, and then this is where you see all those categories. It's got a different look and feel. So you have got hardware, and then inside that hardware you'll see all those all those requests. The same request we saw there. It's got a different UI, more website like stuff, so end users. So that's how it is, right? You have all those options, etc. Now how do we create them? How do we create a request, right? So that's a question. And how do we automate a request? So let's go back to our developer portal. Just let's go back to my instance. You have to type maintain items. Okay, that's a module from where you go and create requests. So maintain items, it's under service catalog definitions, maintain items, right? Let's quickly add and create one item which we discussed. Somebody be able to request a 4G sim. Okay, maybe that's what we want. So I want to give it a name. So request a 4G sim. That's the name I have given. Catalog. So this service catalog. Let's unlock this and see what all options we have. So we have technical catalog, resources, service catalog. Service catalog is what I want. And you can map to more than one catalog. Now, what is this catalog, right? So of course we understand there's a service catalog, but why do we have multiple catalogs? So uh, imagine a hotel where you checked in and then you get a catalog for food, which is all the food items. You get a catalog for beverages where you got all drinks. You got catalog for spa where you got all options for spa. So they are catering to different service lines, and they have their own menu with own items with their rates and how quickly they will turn it around, what are the services offered within each item, right? So you have different menus which caters to different services, and then inside them you have different items which comes to you at different price. That's what catalog is. So service catalog is one which is generic. Technical catalog might have, you know, options where you, or requests which are more technical in nature, like requesting for some softwares, or requesting for some you know, devices which are usually needed by programmers, and you know, those things. You can have a HR specific catalog where you will have requests which are, and categories just specific to HR, you know, human resource related, onboarding, offboarding, and you know, promotions and bonus and all that stuff. You can have a catalog very specific to finance, you know, payroll, which will have items like, you know, salary corrections and pay slips and my statements and my tax statements and all that. So it's your choice to decide at a broader level how many catalogs you want and what categories you want within those catalogs and what items you want to map to each category. So that's a hierarchy you can decide. Create a catalog, separate catalog, create another module, and attach that catalog to that module to the catalog you have created. It's no different from creating different the way we created module. So we created a table, it created a module for itself. We also saw you can go to the modules option, you know, modules menu here, and create your own module and map it to another service catalog. So you can use this existing one to see what are the settings which are done on a service catalog like this. So you can always click on this and it's going to redirect you and show you, you know, this is how it is done, and it kind of you know, takes you to the default service catalog. So maybe you can insert and stay, give it a choice, a name of your choice under which application you want to put this, and then give your catalog name here. And that's going to redirect your users to that catalog instead of the default one. So you can have service catalog, HR catalog. Okay, now let's go and create our item now. So request a 4G SIM is what we thought of. This name and service catalog is where I want to put it, and some details. This request, okay, form for a 4G SIM. Form to request a 4G SIM of your choice. Right, that's what I want to do with this. Maybe, you know, I would like to highlight this or do whatever fancy stuff I want, change font sizes, insert images, hyperlinks. You can do all that, colors. For now, let's save this. Okay, let's save it. I haven't mapped it to the category yet. Okay, let's map it to a category also. So I'll see a couple of categories here. I can create another category if I like, but for now what I'll do is I'll just put it in the office category, for example. Let's save this. Now let's go back to our service catalog and see if our request shows up there. So office, under office is where I mapped it, and request a 4G SIM, right? I see it now. this small short description I gave. This is a preview and shows the description I gave. This is a short description, this description. If I open this, this is what it is. It looks like as of now. It's blank, just my short description and description. Maybe I want to add a field or two in here. So again, I have two options. I can go to maintain items and search my request from there and open it. So maintain item, it's on the top. I can open it. The other way to do is while you're on the catalog itself as an admin, right? It's just an admin feature. It's not anybody can go and modify and request. So on the header, if I click right click and I say configure item, it's going to take me to that form, that maintain item form straight away. And if you want to try it without going to service catalog and office and everything, just click try it. It's going to take you back to that form. That's much faster when you're doing development, unit testing, and all that stuff. You know, you're doing development, you want to test it, fix it, test it, enhance it, test it, and all that. Now I have all of this, but again, once I saved, I've got a couple of deleted lists at the bottom. So now those fields we see on the form, on request form, they are specifically called variables. Okay, they are not called fields, and they are not stored in a table column manner somewhere in the tables module. No, because as I said, every request is unique. Just imagine if I've got 100 requests, does that mean I have to create 100 tables catering to those 100 requests with their specific fields? No, that's not the right design. So what they have done is they call these variables and they store all these variables under variables table, and they have, when you submit it, the variable value variables and their values which users provided is stored in a different table. So it's a different database schema altogether. So they don't have specific tables dedicated to each request, just because the design is so where you can have as many requests you want, and not having so many tables is not feasible. But that doesn't matter uh, as far as our job is done. So questions, right? These are the questions which will be asked on this form. These are those fields and they're called variables. So let me give it what type of field is this. So it's a single line text, or you got multi-line text, you've got a lot of fields in here. I'll choose select box. Okay, so select box, what kind of sim you want, and it automatically creates a name. So this is the question on screen, but this is the internal name for this variable. Any tooltip you want to give, this will be shown when you hover your mouse on that particular field. It will it will come up as a call out, and the order in which you want to show it. So lowest to highest order means the lowest order field will be on the top, then followed by the next order, and so on. You want to make it mandatory or not, and let's submit it. If I click on try it now, I see one drop down, but it has no values, right? I see this, what kind of sim you want. It's a mandatory field, but there's no drop down. When I press order now, that's equivalent to insert, that's submission. It will not let me do that. It says this field is mandatory, it's no value. So on the forms, usually we used to right click and do show choices and add choices, but here we see configure variable. So I can go in and straight away it's going to take me to that variable which you just created. So variable we just created, and at the bottom I can go and add choices. Okay, let's leave all of that. The top one, what is important is the choice text and the value. This is label and the value. You see these prices, and order definitely defines the sequence in which these choices will appear, but price and recurring price, these mostly don't apply. But if your items are such which incur prices, you can mention those prices here for each choices. So nanos, that's my first choice. I have to give it some value. I'll right click, save it. and second order 200. I'm not giving 1 2 3 4. I usually give 100 200 because then you have a buffer in between if at some point you think you need to add 10 more choices in between 100 and 200. It's up to you. 1 2 3 4 10 20 200 200 whatever. So one is nano, then I have got micro, and this time I'm going to right click and insert and stay because I don't want to override the other one. So I created one, then I'm just making changes and insert and stay, insert and stay. So I've got nano, I've got micro, maybe a normal. I don't know what that is, but let's consider it as a choice at the bottom, and insert. This time not insert and stay. I'm doing insert. I just don't want to probably stay on this one. Go back to the variable. So now I'm back, and my choices are down there in this order. Right. Let's uh, let's go back to my request. So I can click on this information icon and open record. It's going to take me to that maintain item record straight away, and then let's try it. I could rather go to maintain items and try, and I can go to service catalog and try multiple ways. Now I see all these values, right? Let's add another field. Let's add a comments field, a multi-line field, and then we'll create a small workflow behind this. When it's submitted, maybe we want to do something. So another field, and this one is a multi-line field. And the order is 200. The first field order was 100. So don't get confused with the order I've given for choices. Those were for choices. And this is for the fields, the variables which will appear on the form. Okay, now comments. I think that's all. I'll leave it optional. I don't want everybody to be forced to put in comments. Let's see how it looks. Right. Yeah. This looks reasonable. This is how I wanted to configure it. You can add as many fields you want. You can put in, make them read only, optional. You can write, you can create UI policies and client scripts for them. Which field you want to show when UI policies, write some scripts on load and all that stuff on change. So these are specifically catalog client scripts. They're no different from the usual client scripts and UI policies, but since they apply only to a specific catalog item, that's why they're called catalog client scripts and catalog UI policies. They'll not apply to all. If I create a catalog client script, it's very, very specific to that catalog item. It's not that it's going to apply to all, catalog items. So here you have a field which says applies to a catalog item. This is the catalog item. And go and try that. But for now, you know what, my request is ready, my form is ready. Maybe what I want to do is once someone submits that, I want to create a task for my staff to arrange for a sim and parcel it, correlate it to that person. Okay, so maybe we can add one more field, address, where we want this to be delivered. You can pull the address from the user record if you have a address field there. It's your choice. Whatever you want to do with this form, add fields, pull value from existing tables, records, etc. But if I go back to configure item, okay, now I have to create a workflow, right? So process engine, I have options to choose from flow, a workflow, or execution path. This is the oldest one. This is probably now, nobody uses it, never. You have a choice, either you use a workflow or a flow. But as I said, if your flow is simple, linear, this is very simple and linear flow, right? We can use flow, we can use workflow. It's our choice here, because this is a very simple flow where someone submits a request, a task gets generated for the staff to package a sim and parcel it, and that's it. That's all that needs to happen. So we can use either workflow and flow. For our case, I'll be using workflow because that's what I wanted to cover. Because they're still being used, they'll be used, I think, largely for another couple of years before they are decommissioned. Flows are very basic at this point. So what I've done is I just typed workflow, and then under workflow, I'm picking up this workflow editor. So since it has to be like a graphical UI for us to drag and drop and create those flowcharts. So we have to go to this workflow editor and press new workflow. And you have to give it some name. So let me give it a name called provision 4G sim. Okay. So it's your choice, whatever name you want to give it. But then it has to be based out of some table. Now this, it's important to understand when we talk about service request, I told you variables are stored in a different table, right? Those are not usual fields on a table like you have tables and columns. Variables are stored in a different table as such, as a schema itself, as a field itself. They are not there in a database as a separate table for any every request will not have a different table. There's just one variables table which is storing all the variables for all the requests, like this all variables. This table store all the variables for all catalogs. 278 entries here, because we cannot have a table specific for each request. That's a bad design. And now when you submit a request, the data actually goes in different tables. There are three important tables. One is called request, another one is called requested item, and then there's a third one called catalog tasks. There are three, right? Very important. Request table, requested item table, and catalog tasks table. When we talk about request mechanism in ServiceNow, these three are very important table. Request sits at the top. Request item is the sits underneath request. So what that means is you can have multiple request item mapped to one request. So imagine it like a order. When you go online, you do a purchasing, there's one order number that's equivalent to the request number, and then you have got 20 items in your order. You have purchased 20 items. You have purchased chips, cookies, sugar, candies. So there are different items with different prices. So requested items are like that. Under one request you have got multiple requested items, multiple things you have purchased. And then catalog tasks are underneath requested item. That means tasks that needs to be performed to fulfill that item, to provide that item. All right, so that's a hierarchy. Request is equivalent to order. That's a bill number is equivalent to request number. Then requested item is equivalent to all those items within that particular bill, all the things you have purchased. And then the third part is just ServiceNow specific, which is catalog tasks. Your tasks that needs to be performed against each requested item, so that order can be fulfilled, that request item can be delivered. So your workflow are request item based mostly, because every item, this catalog item, the catalog form I saw is just one item. You can add multiple items in one request. I'll show you how. So this is a table I have to choose requested item. I'll show you the other ones. So the other one is called requests. Request, I think just request. Is that not this? This is the other. Should be down. This one. So you have got request, you have got requested item, and then you have got catalog task. You can run workflow against any class. Otherwise, if I'm designing a request which is a flow which is specific to catalog task, every task has to have that life cycle. I can design a workflow for catalog task table. That is okay. But in our example, and mostly in ServiceNow, every catalog item has its workflow, which is mapped to the requested item table, because that's where it sits. Your order has requested items, the catalog items which you have ordered, right? So it should map to that. If I go to the user interface, and if we go back to the service catalog, you see there's an option for shopping cart. So if I'm going in and I say, okay, I want this developer laptop, and I add to cart, right? I'm adding it to cart. So it's there in my cart. I'll continue shopping, I'll purchase something else. I want maybe a printer. So I'll this one, and I'll add that to cart as well. And if I go to proceed to checkout, you'll see it has 2 items in my cart. It's like any other e-commerce site where you keep adding items to the cart. I have 2 items here, their price and quantity, total, subtotal, and everything. And it says order place. So I just checked out straight away, and this is the request number generated. These are the 2 items. So if I go into the request, if I click on this, you'll see 2 request items generated for this, right? There are 2 request items here, requested items 2. So under one request. So this is my order. That's my bill number if you like. And then these are individual SKUs, the item codes in my bill. And if you open one of them, you'll see the tasks that needs to be performed to fulfill this request. So there's no task as such, but probably it will create some task at some point. It's saying waiting for approval. Maybe it's waiting for the request to be approved and so on. The point here is to help you understand the hierarchy of these tables. So our case is simple. Our workflow will be based on the requested item table. Any description you would like to give, nothing, and I'll just leave it for now. I'll just submit it, and it will bring up a UI which will let me create my workflow. It has 2 boxes called begin and end. I can move them around and they're connected. I can click on this. I can press delete. I press delete. I can click on this button and drag my arrow from here to here. This is where I want the flow to go. So begin and end, these 2 boxes, these are called activities. Okay. The boxes which you'll see in the workflow, they're called activities, and this is the connection between them. And on the right hand side, if you go to core tab, you'll see a set of categories which has some activities inside them. So approvals, this category holds all the activities which are necessary for seeking approval. You want to trigger an approval from a group, somebody from the group should approve it. You want to trigger an approval for a specific user, or you want to add some manual approvals. It's your choice. Similarly, activities for conditions, if you want to compare something, switches, wait for condition. So these are more advanced topic workflow as such, but for introduction, I think we'll add a simple task called catalog task, this activity. So what I want to do is when it starts, I want a task to be created, a catalog task. So there are 2 things, create task and catalog task. I'll pick up the catalog task because that's what I want. So this is my catalog task. Once the request is submitted, I want this task to be created. Give it some name, uh, and you have a lot of options here. So sim, okay, uh, task for staff. That's what I want. And stage, okay, this is a fulfillment stage. Now, what is stage? There are 2 things when you talk about service request: a state and stage. Okay, these are important. There's a difference and it's important to understand. States are common across all requested items. States could be open, work in progress, closed, cancelled. That applies to each and every request item and request. That's more of telling you on a broader level what's happening. But if we talk about stages, these are very much specific to an item. A fulfillment process for laptop will undergo different stages. Okay, it'll have stages like raise a purchase order, procure the laptop, configure the laptop, deliver the laptop. Okay. A request for 4G SIM will have a different life cycle. It's just about pack it, deliver it, right? Just 2 stages maybe, or if you like, call it fulfillment. That's all. So every request item will have its own life cycle, and that will determine what stages you would like to have. You can go and add more stages and use them in your activities. So each activity in a workflow will belong to some stage. It has to in the life cycle, because workflow is defining the life cycle of fulfillment of a request, and each activity in that is a stage in its life cycle. Childhood, adulthood, old age, these are stages in our life cycle. Similarly, for fulfillment of a 4G sim, there could be different stages, like uh, you configure the 4G sim, packet, deliver it, maybe 3 stages. You can go and break them up, because those stages makes more sense to the user. They don't understand states, they don't know open, WIP, cancel, what that means. WIP of course means work in progress, but what exactly is happening, where is it? If I say, if I'm ordering something and my order status says in progress, I don't know whether it's in progress on their side, it's on their way to delivery, what's happening. So if they give me stages like, order received, packing in progress, out for delivery, reached your place, delivered. So that makes more sense as an end user. So stages are important. States are used internally because for some reporting, we just want to care about how many requests are open, how many of them are closed, how many of them got cancelled. We don't worry about the stages here. So that's where states are used. But for now, I'll be using the stage called fulfillment, which is out of the box stage. Task will be created in catalog task table. The internal name is sc underscore task. What priority would you like to set for this? Important flag is wait for completion. That means when this task will be created as a part of fulfillment, workflow will not move ahead. It will wait for the task to be completed. Only then it will move ahead. Whom it should go to, which group you think it should go to. So I'll give it to, maybe field services staff, and specifically you want to assign it to someone, the username, the description of the task, kindly pack and deliver sim. Okay, and that's it. I mean, I don't want to do much stuff here. I want to keep it basic. So I've created this task, and right now it's in isolation. So what I'll do is I'll delete this connection between begin and end. I'll connect begin to task, and from task I want to go towards end. Okay, so when the workflow will begin, it's going to create a task. It will assign it to that group. It will wait for the task to be completed. Once it is done, it will move ahead and end the workflow. Very simple workflow. You can make it as complex as you want based on your requirement. You can add approvals, conditions. You can fire emails. You can do a lot of stuff. You can go and explore all these activities. You can read about them. There are a lot of them. You can fire events from here. We fired an event using gs.eventqueue and gs.eventqueue schedule. You can also fire events from within workflow and then have your notification based on those events, and they will go out. You can have notifications straight away going out from within workflow. You can use notification activities. So there are a lot of activities you can use, but if you go through them, it needs a multiple lot of sessions. It's not one session item, but it's an advanced topic also. So I'll leave it for future sessions if we'll have those around advanced topics, but you can read about them on docs. There are a lot of videos already available as well. So this is it. This is what I want. And now what I'll do is I'll publish it. Okay, I'll publish. If you don't publish, it stays in the checked out by me status. It still applies on the dev while you're testing it. It'll still run. But if you want to port it, if you want to transfer it to the next instance, you have to first publish it, and that stores it in the update set. If you have set 1 for capturing it, it goes in there, and when you apply the update set, the workflow also get applied. Let's go and quickly submit that request. Now, okay, before I do that, I have to map this workflow to my item, right? I created this item. I haven't yet mapped my workflow to that. See, it's empty. So let's pull this up. I don't recall what the name was, but let's bring up this pop-up. I think I gave 4G in the name somewhere. Yeah, provision of 4G. That's my workflow. It's set. I'll save it. Let's try this. So microsim test 1 2 3 order. Okay, so now the request has been placed for this. That's a request number. Let's open that, and we have got no approval, so it says approved because that's approved by default. There are no exclusive approvals we asked for. And this is one request item which got generated. It's in fulfillment stage. State is still open. This is my, the inputs user provided. If you scroll down at the bottom, you see there's one task which has been generated. This task has gone to this team. Assignment group is not on the form. You can bring that up. Let's configure form and bring that up. I don't know why it's not there. It should be there by default. Assignment group. Where is that assignment group? This is here. Let me bring it up before assigned to. So yeah, it got assigned to field services staff, right? That's what we wanted. A task to be generated, given to them with this description, and now they know what to do. Just against this, they can go and check who requested it, their address back, and deliver the same. Once they're done, they mark it as close. So they've done it completely, or they cancelled it. So close, incomplete, skip, whatever. You want to put it in pending, you want more information. These just states, and it's in close task, right? So the task is closed now. Let's look at our workflow. This is the running blueprint. So at the bottom of the request item form, because my workflow is based on request item form, you see this show workflow but a link. You click on that, it opens up the running version of the workflow. So this is how it went. It went from here to here and then to this point. If I'll go and again, submit another request, same request one more time, you'll see I want to show you the in progress stage of the workflow as well. Maybe normal, this one, order now, go in here, and let's go and see the workflow. So you see it's green, this blue, this is completed, it has reached here, it's still waiting, it has not reached towards, it's still waiting, it's in action, it's waiting for uh, the task to be completed, right? And if I go and complete this task, and I refresh this by using this, refresh icon here, you see it moved towards end, the workflow is ending. But at the same time, you'll notice, the item state, the request item state still says open, and stage is fulfillment, because we have not set them through our workflow. We have to control all of this. So let's go and do that. So what I'll do is check this out. Again, I want to modify this. At this point, I cannot modify. I cannot, add more. If I try to, I cannot. It's published. So I have to check this out on my dev instance, capture my changes in the update set and move it to the next instance. So I'm just checking it out. Now I can add more activities. What I want to do is set values for those fields. So what I'll do is I'll use such activities. Set values is under utilities. So I'll use this set value, I'll drag it here. Okay, and set state and stage. That's what I want to do. And this is also part of fulfillment, or maybe, call it, its fulfillment is done. This belongs to the completed stage in itself. And I want to set state. So this state is the state field on the request item form, because that is where my workflow is running. It's based on the request item form. Stage to order. Okay, stage to be completed and submitted. So it's done. Again, I'll have to disconnect these two because this is where I want to place it in between these two. Come here and you go there, and that's all. You can always click delete and link. So you can always do that. We do this a lot. That's how you design workflows. You can drag and drop them anywhere so that it's more readable. So this is a simple workflow. Sometimes workflow becomes very complex with hundreds of activities. So this arrangement of activities become important. Then I publish it again, and let's close all of these. Let's go and submit another request. Order now. The order is placed. It's approved. My item is here. The requested item. In short, we call it ritem. That's the prefix RITM. And it's in open state and it's in fulfillment stage. Let's open the task. Let's complete the task. And now you'll notice the stage got set to completed and state is closed complete, because that's what logically should be, because once the only task which is there gets completed, the workflow should mark that ritem also has complete. So that's what it has done. It went from begin to catalog task, from here to set values, and then from there to end. So you can design as complex workflows as you want, and you need to have a good understanding of each and every activity, what these activities are there for, what they can do, and what you cannot do with the workflow. All right, guys, I think pretty much covered all the topics we wanted today. It was almost 2 hours. I'll quickly go through the chat to see if we have questions. Someone asked, does this means multiple developer can work in sync on different fixes on same update set? No. So every developer should use their own update set. Using common update set is not a good practice, because that way you might overlap changes which others have done. So have your own update set and make changes and capture changes which you are supposed to in that update set. Sometimes that might also mean more than one person making a change to the same component. So imagine there's a business rule to which 10 people are making changes parallelly. So first thing is to avoid such a situation. We should try to avoid it, and how to avoid it is by process. So it's not a technical thing which you can control. It has to be controlled through process. So every business rule, every component is related to a functionality. So somebody is making change to that component means they want to either fix something in that functionality or they want to enhance something in that functionality. If that's what they want to do, those enhancements or fixes around that particular functionality should be controlled by a process owner, and they should know that one request for enhancement should go at a time, so that people don't it doesn't happen two enhancements getting assigned to two different people working on the same set of component. That could cause potential overlap. But then again, even if it is there, if you can when you're going to pull and apply update sets, the update set is going to tell you that there's a latest version than what you're trying to apply for the specific component on the target. Do you want to keep the local version which is the latest, or you want to force yours onto that one? And then you go into the mode of comparing the local version with what you have and deciding whether you want to keep the local version which is already there, or you want to apply yours. That does happen. It's a very practical situation. But then as I said, there's this preview also tells you there's a local version which is latest than the one you're trying to push, and then you can compare and decide. It happens 20% of the times. 80% doesn't happen because we control it through process. We define who controls what functionality can have what enhancements at what point in time. They're very well planned. So planning can avoid a lot of those, but even if you get into that, there are ways to get out of it by doing comparisons and accepting the changes which you really want to make on the target instance. Yes, but using a common update set between multiple people is not a good practice. when we have to go with XML and when with remote instance, any special cases. Generally, we say that when two instances are on different versions, okay, like in our case, they were on different versions. People say you should export and apply, uh, but we saw it was not required. We were able to pull and apply, right? But people say that you should export and apply. The other situation could be where two instances have no connections. Okay, this for some reason you cannot establish a connection, but you want to supply that update set to someone. You export the XML, you give it to them, you send it over email, you put it on the shared drive or wherever, and they pull it and they import it on your target instance and apply it. So that's the second use case where you would see people exporting update sets and importing them. Similarly, if you go to store, I did mention a couple of times there's this store website, store.servicenow.com, where people publish apps they create. Some are for free, some you have to purchase. Now when you download those apps and you purchase those apps, they download update sets in XML format on your desktop. That means you have to import those update sets and apply. Some definitely contact your instance directly and push their changes. That also happens, and they enable it through plugins. That's another way. But some of them do let you download update sets in XML, and then when you apply those update sets, those features and apps gets created in your instance. That's another use case. The next question is it possible to move multiple customization at once from one update set to another? Yes, you can move changes from one update set to another. So if I go to, say, for example, local update sets, right? And this request creation and everything, we didn't capture it in any update set. We didn't created any, we didn't set any update set. So where did it all went? It went into this default update set. There's another update set which is called default. Everything gets there if you have not created an update set deliberately to capture your enhancements. So if I scroll down in this update set, you'll see and sort it on the descending order. You see, this is all the work we have done, all of our work we just recently did. Now imagine I have to move all of them, right? I have to move all of them to my update set, which I forgot to create. Now what do I do? So I go and I create another update set. Now I just control clicked this so that it opens in the new tab, and I create a new update set. So 4G request, that was my purpose. I'll leave it in progress for now, and I'll just submit it because I don't want to make it current. There's no point now. So I'll submit it. This one is empty, right? So this is empty right now. Now I know everything that I did is in default. How do I move them from this update set to my custom update set, my specific update set? What I do is uh, you can open individual update set, and then at the bottom you see this update set field. You change it to your update set. Okay, that's my update set, and you update it. And now that one entry is here in my update set, right? It came here. This is how you move update sets from one update set to another, updates from one update set to another. Now, what if I have to move a lot of them? So there were 340 initially in this default one. I'll click on this link. It's going to refresh it. Now it's 339 because you moved one. Now, how about moving all of them, a lot of them together? So what do I do is right click this. Okay, right click this hyperlink and go to open new window. What is going to do is the same list. It's going to open the same list, but in a different window. Now here I see another field called update set. It wasn't there, right? You can add it from here, but I personally don't do that. I load it in a different window. Now I have this. Now the updates which I want to move, right? I probably want to move from here, from this point onwards, because I know this is our previous work. This is where we started. from here till what, this top. This is what I want to do. So let me zoom this out a little bit so that I see all of them. And I'm clicking control, and then I clicked on this cell using mouse, and look at this, it's highlighted in blue, and I'm dragging my mouse. Okay, I'm dragging my mouse down. It's all highlighted. So I've clicked control, the control is still clicked, and I'm dragging my mouse by left clicking it from top to bottom, and I selected all of them. This is multiple selection. This is how you select multiple records in a list view in ServiceNow in general, not just specific to update set, but in general in list view, you can select multiple records like this. Then I double click anywhere on this, any of these blue cells, right? And I select my update set here. That's my update set. Oops, sorry, I just missed that again. We'll do it one more time. Okay, double click, open this, didn't got set yet. This was my update set, and then I have to click on this right icon. It's going to process, right, like this, and everything is now moved to my update set. Now if I refresh my update set here, now I've got all these entries, right? So my update set is done. I have this, let me mark it as complete, and I'll save it. Let's go to my target instance again, and let's apply that as well. Let's see the whole cycle. So I have to log in again. Got logged out. Okay, let's go to service catalog, and under office, okay, we don't see 4G here. We don't have it yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to update sources, click on this record I created for connection with dev, retrieve completed update sets. It's going to pull that update set. So it's trying to do that. It's done. One update sets has been previewed. Go to retrieved update sets. This is my update set. It's already previewed. I'll just commit it and let it do the job. It's still running. It's done. Close. Let me go back to service catalog. Okay, let's go to office again. Now I'm a request to folder sim request here. It's there. It's not enough. Save it. Not enough. Okay. This is how you move your update sets, your requests, and any customization for that matter. What you do, you move them from one instance to another. And we also saw how we can move updates if we accidentally captured it in the default one from that to our update set. The only important thing for you to note is you should be able to identify your changes, your in that default update set. It's a big update set, right? Let's go back. Let me share. If you see this default one, it's big one, right? It's got 339 because anything and everything you're doing is getting captured here, because that's the one which gets set to on its own. Once you close the current update set, the default the current update set gets set to default on its own. Ideally, this should be blank. You shouldn't be making any changes which you're not capturing. That means you don't want to port them, you don't want to transfer them to the other instance, and all your instances should be in sync. This is configuration and code, right? You don't want your code to be different on one instance and another. So whatever you do should be part of your enhancements or bug fixes or your new feature rollouts, and you should be capturing them. But anyways, if that happens, that's how you get out of it. Now, okay. So I think, let me see if we have any more questions. Is there any way to make changes to right size menu which shows default menu for delivery. No, I don't know what that means. Is there any way to make changes to right size menu with defaults, with, which shows default menu for delivery? Sorry, I don't know what that means. If you can rephrase that. The next one is we can't mark 10 updates at move at once. You can again make one as parent and rest of them child. You pull parent, the childs will get pulled automatically, and anyways all the completed update sets gets pulled. But when you apply the parent, the childs will be applied automatically. You can do that, put them in bunch. There's another mechanism called merging of update sets, which in which practically clubs the updates within from all the update sets into one update set. You club them. That's also I've seen people doing, but that needs some manual work. In sense, people should know, one who's merging should be careful to see if they're common components, which version to pick up. Is there any issue you have faced regarding importing update sets after instance upgrade? No, I have not faced any issue after instance upgrade. No, I mean, if two instances are on different versions, ServiceNow recommend not to pull and apply. I mean, they say you can, ideally you shouldn't be applying any update sets between instances on different versions, and there has to be reason why your versions are different. All of your instances in the stack, dev, test, and prod, should be on the same version. Of course, as you upgrade, first you upgrade dev, you test it, everything goes fine, you upgrade UAT. Till that point, you are free to move code changes from dev to UAT, but from UAT to production, you are not recommended. You should have a moratorium around it. You should have a code freeze in that duration when you're upgrading it. And once your prod is upgraded, you can move your changes from test to prod. So ideally, the upgrade cycle should have some amount of code freeze. That means no code changes to be done in that time because you're upgrading and your instances are on different versions. That's a best practice, but again, organizations and the process and the stakeholders define what they need to do and why and how. That's more of a process and a strategic decision there. Is there be any issues you have faced regarding? Okay. Anyway, is there any way to make changes to right size menu which shows default menu? This question is on the right side menu which is shown while ordering same. There's some predefined text. Okay. So let me go back. You're talking about, if I go and open this right? This is, you have this quantity order now, add to cart. Is that what you're talking about? Okay, yes. So this is a common component, right? This will appear for all requests. It's an out of the box component, like the search catalog at the top, this breadcrumb. But you can still configure some aspect of it, like quantity. If I right click and configure item, and there's an add to cart and you have shopping cart and all of that, you can go and control some of those things, like hide add to cart, hide quantity, hide delivery time. If I update it, because this is a little advanced topic, but I'll touch upon it since you've asked for it. So now if I go in here, you still see these values are being used. Still quantity, they still add to cart. And the reason is there's another thing called using cart layouts. So they are cart layouts. Okay, uh, I'll show you what cart layouts. So hiding those things, hide quantity, hide shopping cart and all that, that was a setting at a item level. We went to the maintain item record and we did that, right? We went to configure item, we did that. That was at a that was in past when we didn't had cart layout options. Then at some point that used to control those things at individual level. Then ServiceNow realized people are doing it more than often. They thought of centrally controlling it. So they said we'll have cart layouts, we'll let them set those things on the cart layout, and any items using those cart layouts will follow that. If they don't follow cart layout, those individual settings will will take effect. So if I go and let's, before cart layout, let's go to maintain items, and I'll bring in another field called use cart layout. That's what it is called. Is it already there? Yeah, this last column maybe on my right hand side. So it says use cart layout as true, right? That's what it says for my item. I'll set it to false. I don't want the cart layout to be followed. I want the individual settings I've done to be followed. Okay, still there's something. Let's go and configure item. Let's go and change this from the layout then. Browser screen. Now you have to see which one you want to pick up, because these apply to various sections. So this is not this one. Item ordering widget. Widget listing details of the current catalog item. Let's open this. So I want order now, of course. I don't want add to cart. I don't want add to wish list, update cart maybe. And I don't want to see delivery time. I don't want to see quantity, no price, nothing. Subtotal doesn't make sense to me. So I'm unchecking all of that. Still, I think that maybe I can log in and log out, but you can try that. That is how you control it through cart layouts. Okay, again, maybe I just removed the cart layout. Let me put it back on this item. This is my last shot on this, since we all have to go back to our schedule. So I'll just set it true now, because I set that to false. So even if I'm changing setting on the cart layout, they were not taking effect. Now I have set it to true, so that it uses the cart layout, and try again, and it should happen now. See, that's all of that is gone. So change your cart layouts and make your request follow the cart layout, and it will be done. Otherwise, also, if you're not using cart layout and you do settings on the individual item, it should take place. I don't know what went wrong, but you can try that if you don't want to use cart layout. But ServiceNow recommends using cart layout. They evolved, right? So cart layouts, as I said, were not there since beginning. Early days ServiceNow 2001 to not 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think they were not having cart layouts. Then they introduced cart layout at some point in 15, 16. Since then, they recommend using it. Right. All right, guys. I think those were the questions on the chat. So I'll put this recording. It's a long one today, and with that, I think we conclude our basic sessions. I hope it was of some use to you. It gave you some idea about the platform, what it can do, and help you with some foundation on which you can develop your skills, read more about it. I recommend reading, and at the same time practicing. If you don't practice, it's not going to really work for you. So practice, read and practice, and a lot, watch videos. There are a lot of channels. I think I niche in my session one, I did share a couple of them, which are ServiceNow own channels you can follow. There are a lot of videos they post. I'll be posting videos on my YouTube as well. So I'll put videos specific to topics. I'll put some generic videos also. I've got lots of email people talking about the career path, the certification path. So I'll be creating videos specifically around those topics, and you'll see them soon. I'll start with career path. I'll go towards the certification path, and of course technical topics. I'll be having videos around flow designers and complex flows, and we'll cover a lot more there. Maybe, yeah, at some point I was planning to have another series for, this was for foundation, right? So maybe we'll have a series for developer, and then maybe advanced. So two more series at some point this year or maybe early next year, where we'll have similar sessions where we will be touching upon advanced topics. So the recommendation would be to go through this series first and only then enroll for that. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense, because there we are not going to talk about business rules or scripting tools. We'll be using them in advanced mode, and we'll be learning more advanced topics. So it will be, step ahead from here. So there's no point jumping straight away there, because then someone who's not attended these will not understand them, or if they don't have any background, if they have not attended these sessions and still they've worked on ServiceNow as a developer, it will be useful for them. But with no knowledge, it's going to be a challenge. But anyways, I think I pretty much covered what I wanted to in this series, a little more, I believe. And accept my apologies if there were any mistakes I've made. No one is perfect. Maybe I did some mistakes somewhere in my content or in my presentation, so kindly excuse me for that. But we all learn and grow. So thank you very much for joining this series, and spending time, and being there. So thank you very much. We'll stay in touch, and I'll be posting videos and articles on LinkedIn, so do watch them. Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice rest of your day. All the best for your journey.